Are you paralyzed by the constant weight of high-stakes decisions that leave you mentally exhausted by noon? I'm not talking about what to put on the lunch menu or which font to use on the slide deck. I'm talking about the decisions that keep you up at 2 a.m. The ones where you wonder, did I handle that student right? Did I support that teacher the way they needed? Did I call the right play for this team? Am I building something that actually matters or just managing chaos? Here's the thing nobody in education or leadership circles wants to say out loud. Decision fatigue is killing your momentum. And the harder you work at it, the more staff meetings you call, the more parent emails you answer, the more spreadsheets you build, the worse it gets. But what if I told you the secret to clarity isn't working harder? What if the answer is something as counterintuitive as gratitude? Today, I'm going to show you how to filter every single choice, from a difficult conversation with a struggling student to a high-stakes staff decision, through a framework that doesn't just reduce your fatigue, it builds your legacy. I'm Bob Herb, co-author of How to Leave a Lasting Legacy Through Care, and welcome to the Care Agent Leadership Channel. Let's get into it. Let me paint you a picture of a Tuesday morning in 2026. You're a principal, or a head coach, or a department chair, or maybe you're running a growing team of your own. You wake up, and before your feet hit the floor, you've got 17 notifications. A parent email flagged urgent, a teacher who needs a sub for third period, a student who had an incident on the bus, and somewhere in there, a district mandate due by Friday that nobody mentioned until yesterday. It's 5:47 in the morning and you haven't had a coffee yet. By the time you walk through the building's front door at 7:30, you're already half spent. There's a concept in psychology called ego depletion. The idea that willpower and decision-making works like a muscle. And the more you use them, the more fatigue they get. In today's world, that muscle is being taxed before you've had your breakfast. A colleague of mine, a veteran principal with over 2 decades in some of the most demanding schools in her district, told me something that stops me cold. She said, "Bob, I make somewhere between 60 and 80 significant decisions a day. By Thursday, I'm just saying yes to everything because I don't have the bandwidth to think anymore." Then she paused and said, and that scares me. See, that's not weakness, that's biology. Research for Columbia University found that judges gave favorable rulings roughly 65% of the time at the start of the day. And that number dropped dramatically before lunch. These are trained professionals, and they're running out of gas too. The same thing happens to teachers in their 5th period class, coaches in the 4th quarter of a long season, administrators on the last day before winter break. The tank is empty because it's not because you're bad at your job, it's empty because nobody designed the roles with your cognitive reserves in mind. Here are the signs of choice overload. Tell me if any of these sound familiar. You start avoiding difficult conversations you know you need to have. You snap at someone over something small. You feel physically heavy, like there's a weight on your chest during the school day. You second-guess decisions you already made, and you wind up in reactive mode, just putting out whatever fires the loudest instead of leading with attention. If you recognized any of these in yourself, you're in the right place, because awareness is the first step. And what I'm about to share is the paradigm shift that changes everything. Here's the framework that Paul Weinheimer and I developed over a combined 3 decades of leadership, coaching, teaching, and watching what separates the great ones from the burned out ones. We call it the CARE framework, and it's not a motivational poster. It's a precision filter. A decision-making lens you run every major choice through before you act. C stands for compete with character. The A stands for acquire an attitude of gratitude and greatness. R stands for respect and responsibility. And the E stands for engaging everything enthusiastically. Now, let's unpack the first 2, because understanding the foundation changes how you use the rest. C, compete with character. This one trips people up, especially in high-performance environments, because we're conditioned to compete. Coaches want to win. Teachers want their students to outperform. Administrators want their schools at the top of every ranking. Hey, and look, I'm absolutely not against winning, but here's the question. CARE forces you to ask before every significant decision. Does this choice reflect who I actually want to be, not just what I want to get? Let me give you a little story. I know a high school basketball coach, let's call him Coach Davis, who had a chance to recruit a transfer student who was a genuine Division I prospect. Game-changing talent, the kind of kid you build a season around. But here's the wrinkle. Coach Davis had a junior who'd been in this program for 3 years and was pretty good. A kid who'd bought in completely, worked every offseason, and was finally in line to start. If the transfer came in, the junior's role evaporates overnight. His instinct, and I get it, I've been there, was to make that move. Win now. Championships open doors for everybody. But the character filter stopped him. He asked, what am I teaching my returning player about loyalty and sacrifice? What does this say to every kid in my program about what I actually value? He passed on the transfer. He developed the junior. They didn't win the state title that year, but 5 years later, 2 of his players became coaches themselves, and they still call him. That's the long game. That's character. A, acquire an attitude of gratitude and greatness. Now, here's where some of you are going to want to roll your eyes, and I get it. Bob, you're going to tell me to keep a gratitude journal, aren't you? Well, yeah, kind of, but not in the way you think, and definitely not in the way that's going to add to your already overstuffed to-do list. Here's the neuroscience. When you genuinely feel gratitude, not just think it, but actually feel it, your brain releases oxytocin and dopamine. The prefrontal cortex, the exact part of your brain responsible for complex decision-making, becomes more active and more connected. In plain English, gratitude literally makes you a better decision maker. It's not soft, it's strategic. And the greatness piece, greatness isn't about arrogance. It's not about being the best school in the state. No, that's not a bad thing. It's about the pursuit of your highest possible contribution. Every decision you make should pass this test. Does this move me and the people I lead toward our highest possible contribution? Not just the test scores, not just the win-or-loss record, the contribution. A teacher doesn't just teach math. She develops the next generation of engineers and problem solvers. A coach doesn't just run drills. He builds young men and women who know how to handle adversity. An administrator doesn't just manage a building. He or she reacts or creates a culture where every child feels safe enough to grow. Together, these first 2 pillars ask, is this decision worthy of who I am and who I'm becoming? The first 2 pillars orient your heart and your mind. The next 2 are where the rubber meets the road. R, respect and responsibility, is where the long-term survival lives. Here's the question this pillar demands. Does this decision respect everyone affected by it? Am I taking full ownership of its outcome? Notice, I said everyone, not just the person loudest in your inbox, not just the star student or the star player, the quiet kid in the back row, the first-year teacher who doesn't know yet that they can control or expect what to come, the assistant coach who hasn't been consulted in 3 weeks. Here's a story that changed how I think about this. I was working with an assistant principal, a sharp, well-intentioned leader who had a teacher on her team who was struggling. Parents were complaining, observation scores were dropping, and this AP's instinct, like most of ours would be, was to start documenting toward removal. Get the paperwork going, protect the school. But when we ran it through the respect and responsibility filter, 3 questions stopped her cold. 1, have you had a real conversation with this teacher? Not an evaluation meeting, but an honest human conversation about what's happening in their life? No. 2, does this teacher know specifically what success looks like in the building? Not what the rubric says, but what you need from them? Also no. Number 3, has this teacher been given genuine support? Not just feedback to help them get there? No. She shifted her approach. She had the real conversation. She found out this teacher was going through a brutal personal situation at home that nobody knew about. She provided a mentor, adjusted the support plan, and gave honest expectations. That teacher became one of the most respected in the building in 18 months, and still there today. The responsibility piece is equally powerful. When you own outcomes fully, publicly, you do 2 things at once. You protect your integrity, and you model for every student, player, staff member watching you that leadership means being the first one to raise your hand and the last one to point fingers. E, engage everything enthusiastically, is my personal favorite, but I want to be very clear about what enthusiasm means in the care context, because it does not mean pretending everything is fine when it's not. Teachers and coaches have finely tuned radar for fake energy. You know what it looks like? Don't do it. Engage everything enthusiastically means bringing your full, intentional energy to whatever you decided to do. Once the decision is made, you commit to it with everything you have. Here's the fatigue trap most leaders fall into, and I see it constantly in schools. They make a decision, but they don't fully commit because they're still second guessing it. So they're running two mental tracks at the same time, executing and doubting. That's exhausting. That's the real source of burnout. Think about the best teacher you ever had, or the best coach. What made them different wasn't just their knowledge. It was that they were all in every time they walked in that room. You could feel it. It made you want to show up. Your energy is contagious, and so is your doubt. Run the decision through all four pillars, make the best call you can, and then go full energy, full intention. I want to go deeper on gratitude because I believe it's the single most underutilized leadership tool available to teachers, coaches, or an administrator. And it costs exactly nothing. I'll be honest with you, years ago, I would have told you that gratitude practices were for like yoga retreats, not faculty meetings. I was wrong, completely wrong, and I'm not too proud to say it. Here's what changed my mind, the biology. When you're under high-stakes pressure, a difficult IEP meeting, a parent who's angry in your office, a player who just blew up at an umpire in front of the whole crowd, your brain activates. That's your threat or detection center. And when it's firing, the prefrontal cortex, your rational, empathetic, decision-making brain goes partially offline. In plain English, stress makes you worse at your job in the moments when your job is hardest. That's not a character flaw, it's biology. But here's the beautiful part. Research shows that gratitude practice activates the medial prefrontal cortex. It acts, and I love this phrase, as a neural circuit breaker. It interrupts the anxiety spiral. And so, what does this look like in practice? Here's what Paul and I recommend, and what I personally do every single morning before I look at my phone, my email, or my calendar. 5 minutes. I call it the Morning Appreciation Audit. 3 questions, that's it. Number 1. What are 3 things I'm genuinely grateful for right now? Not my health and my family on autopilot. I actually feel it. Think of a specific student who surprised you last week. A moment in practice where something clicked. A colleague who showed up for you when they didn't have to. Number 2. What is one challenge I'm facing today that's actually making me better? Because reframing a problem as development, not punishment, changes your brain chemistry and changes your posture walking in that room. Number 3. Who on my team deserves acknowledgement today? And I'm actually going to give it to them. That 3rd question is a game changer in schools and on teams, because most of us recognize good work but never say it out loud in the moment. And the people who are doing the quiet, important, unglamorous work, the teacher who stays after every day, the team captain who mentors the freshman nobody notices, those people run on acknowledgement. They need to hear it from you. And there's a team dimension here that the research backs up beautifully. Google ran a massive internal study called Project Aristotle. They wanted to know what made their highest performing teams different. They expected the answer to be talent or experience or strategy. Know what it actually was? Psychological safety. Teams where people felt genuinely seen and valued outperformed everyone else. Not because they were smarter, because they felt safe enough to bring their best thinking. Your classroom's a team. Your coaching staff is a team. Your department is a team. When you lead from gratitude, when you make people feel genuinely seen, you activate that exact condition that produces the results you're after. Gratitude is not a soft skill. It's a performance multiplier. And in education and athletics, it might be the most important leadership tool that you have. I want to close this teaching portion of today with a question that I think about more than almost anything else. 20 years from now, when the students you're teaching today are raising their own kids and coaching their own teams, what will they say about you? Because everything we've talked about today, the framework, the gratitude practice, all of it can become just another professional development checklist. Another thing you do for a few weeks and then abandon it when life gets busy. Unless you connect it to something bigger than the school year, bigger than the season, bigger than your contract. Paul and I wrote this book because we both watch what happens to leaders who are technically brilliant, who have all the strategy and none of the soul. They get results short term and then they hollow out. Their teams turn over, their passion drains, and one day they look up and realize that if they left tomorrow, nobody would tell a story about them at the retirement dinner that actually mattered. That's not a legacy, that's a job title. The teachers and coaches who leave lasting legacies are not always the ones with the best test scores or the most championship banners. They're the ones whose former students show up at their funerals and say, that person saw something in me before I saw it in myself. They're the ones who change the trajectory of a life. That's available to every person watching this video, not just the great ones, all of you. Here's what I found after decades of working alongside teachers, coaches, and leaders of all kinds. The ones who leave a lasting legacy made the decisions from love, not fear. Love is their mission, love of their people, love of their craft of growing a human being. Fear-based decisions, the ones driven by job security or looking good for the district or keeping a difficult parent quiet, always feel urgent, and they most never feel right with your gut afterwards. The CARE framework creates a feedback loop that anchors you to love. Gratitude fuels character, character enables respect, respect breeds enthusiasm, and enthusiasm creates a culture where gratitude flows naturally from the people around you, from your students, from your players, from your team. It compounds day by day, decision by decision, until one day it's not a framework anymore, it's just who you are. That's the legacy, and it starts today. All right, let's bring this home. Here's what we covered today. Decision fatigue is real, it's physiological, and anyone leading people in hyper-connected 2026 environments, in a school, on a team, or an organization, it's dealing with it every single day. The CARE framework gives you a 4-pillar filter to run every major decision through, competing with character, acquiring an attitude of gratitude and greatness, respect and responsibility, and engaging everything enthusiastically. Gratitude's not a soft skill. It's a neural circuit breaker that restores your decision-making capacity and the single most affordable leadership tool available to you right now. And the goal isn't just better decisions. The goal is a leadership legacy that outlasts you and the lives of every student, athlete, and team member you have the privilege of serving. You ready to build that? And here's your next step. Paul Weinheimer and I wrote How to Leave a Lasting Legacy Through CARE to give you everything you need to put this framework into practice, not just conceptually, but in the real, messy, beautiful work of growing people every single day. Whether you're a classroom teacher figuring out how to lead a room full of teenagers, a coach managing a program with your whole heart, an administrator trying to hold a school culture together, or a future business leader who wants to build something that lasts, this book was written for you. The link to grab your copy is in the description below. If you got value from today's video, and I genuinely hope you did, please do me one favor. Hit that like button. It sounds small, but it tells YouTube that this content matters, and it helps us reach the educators and leaders who need it most. Drop a comment below. I want to hear from you. Which pillar of CARE speaks to where you are right now? And if you've got a story about a leader who changed your life, share it with us. Those stories matter. The world needs to hear them. I'm Bob Herb. Keep leading with care, and I'll see you in the next one.